We are back with a recap of yesterday's episode, but first, let's roll the intro. Now, before we get into the episode, it's interesting to note that there's a new intro this year for Big Brother. Now, obviously, they weren't going to be able to do their little dances the way that they normally do because of COVID. However, I think it's cool anyways because it's kind of this throwback intro from the older seasons that a lot of the All-Stars are from. So we open this episode with Cody talking about how he's the new HOH. And he said he didn't really want to do that at the start, but once he saw who he was competing against, he wanted to gun for it to make sure he was safe. We also get a lot of great DR sessions from the people kind of reacting to the new All-Stars in the house. After the DR sessions, we get to see the house guests pick up where they left off. All the house guests went upstairs to check out the new Have-Not room. After the Have-Not room, they kind of went through and had their first house tour. Then in the photo room, we get an interaction between Da'Vonne and Franzel. Franzel is telling Da'Vonne how thankful she is, and she's very emotional because Da'Vonne gave her a final vote at the end of their season. This led to Franzel making $500,000 and winning the whole season. Once Franzel leaves though, Da'Vonne looks at the camera and basically gestures like this isn't going to happen again. Later on, we see Cody sitting down with several house guests one by one in the HOH room. This is kind of that game talk that you see more towards the middle of the season, but it's really kicking off right at the start. In the DR, we see Cody talking about his different possibilities for nominations. He says the two best possibilities are Kaysar and Janelle, but he doesn't want them to find out about it too early. Then comes the first big twist of the season, the safety suite. Now, the safety suite is an opportunity for the house guests to play for safety. If they win, they get to keep themselves safe as well as someone else. Now, the catch is they can only play the safety suite once. Once they use it, it's done. So then there's this announcement in the living room, and they have 60 minutes to decide whether or not they want to play the safety suite. Some house guests are saying that it's disrespectful to the HOH to play. Other house guests are just staring at the door and waiting for people to play. Shortly after the announcement, we see Janelle head upstairs to have a conversation with Cody. As she comes out of that conversation, she feels very uneasy about it and has to decide whether or not she needs to play for safety. Then Kaysar, with 10 seconds left, decides to go up and play the safety suite. Followed shortly after is Janelle, and they both scan in. In a weird audible version of Simon Says, Kaysar wins the safety suite and keeps himself and Janelle safe. So then, not to rock the boat, Cody decides to put up Keisha and Kevin. The episode then closes with the reactions from Keisha and Kevin after the nomination ceremony. That is all I have for the episode. Let's move into the spoilers. For those of you not wanting to see the spoilers, make sure to pause and click away now. When you see this set, it means that we're going to talk about the feeds. So starting off on the feeds, we saw a lot more of the conversations that Cody had with the different house guests. He was having conversations with Tyler and Danny and Memphis and Nicole F. Now, Franzel, Nicole F., was talking about how she wanted to make this final 2 deal with Cody. Obviously, that's still up in the air, and he's still deciding on what he wants to do and what alliance he wants to be a part of. All he knows is that he's not on Kaysar's side. Now, another important detail is that when Janelle had this conversation with Cody right before the safety suite, Cody guaranteed her that she was safe. He said, "You're not going up." So he was very shocked when she decided to play. It almost made him feel like she doesn't trust him. Also, other kind of background information, when Kaysar played the safety suite game, he asked production what would happen if both him and Janelle timed out. Production said that they would just keep going until one of them won. So his thought is that if you play the safety suite and you're by yourself, you pretty much have a guaranteed safety. Now, even though Keisha and Kevin were both very easy nominations for Cody, he did have some tough conversations with them, starting with a very in-depth life story from Kevin right before the nominations. He almost changed them, but he didn't want to rock the boat. Then following the nominations, he had a very long conversation with Keisha that lasted something like 1 to 2 hours. Now, outside of the HOH room, we have Tyler making a ton of final 2 deals. It seems like he's chatting with just about everybody in the house. From people like Danny to people like David to, Kaysar, every side of the house he's chatted with, and he's always saying things like, yeah, let's work together. Yeah, we got this. We'll run this stuff. We'll see how it plays out because it's very similar to the game that he played before. A lot of these people that he's making final 2s with also don't quite trust him because they watched his season. So now that we have Kevin and Keisha on the block, we have 2 different sides of the house. We have Janelle and Kaysar trying to keep Keisha, and then we have Cody and Memphis and Franzel all trying to keep Kevin. Now, we'll see how this plays out, but it's looking more and more like Keisha is going home. Now, one of the major talking points, and I think hopefully we'll see this, if not next episode, the episode following, Memphis is trying to work out an alliance with Cody. He's kind of going through different names and kind of trying to decide who would work well together. We also have people like Bailey trying to pitch like basically a brigade alliance to Enzo and a couple others. So I think alliances are going to form, but I think it's way too early to decide whether or not these alliances will hold. All right, guys, thank you for checking in. I hope this was helpful in understanding more of what's going on in the Big Brother house. Going forward, I will be releasing videos on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, all with a little bit different content, so make sure to look out for those. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave those down below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Make sure to leave a like, hit subscribe, and ring that bell. I'll see you guys in the next one.